Let's get one thing straight. You're not here by accident. The fact that you landed on this video right now, in this very moment, means something bigger is at work in your life. And I need you to hear me when I say this. You are chosen. Yes, you. You are not just another face in the crowd. There is a reason your path led you here, and it's because a major shift is happening inside you and around you. This isn't just another motivational message. This is a divine wake-up call. The old version of you, that one's already fading, and what's rising in its place is powerful, aligned, unstoppable. You're not chasing anymore. You're attracting. The things you once hoped for, they're already in motion. And guess what? You're finally ready to receive them. I'm not talking about surface-level change. I'm talking about a full-on spiritual upgrade. Your energy is different now. You're stepping into alignment. You're stepping into purpose. You're stepping into everything you were meant to become. So before we go any further, pause for a second and do 3 simple but powerful things. Subscribe, because this is just the beginning of your transformation. And drop 55 in the comments to claim this moment and signal to the universe, I'm ready. This isn't for everyone, but if you feel that stirring in your soul right now, that goosebump level confirmation, this message is for you. Stay with me until the end, because your breakthrough is closer than you think. Let's go. You're not becoming, you already are. This is your moment. Hit subscribe now and step into something greater. Don't miss out. There are moments when clarity arrives not as a roar, but as a stillness that unsettles everything familiar. Suddenly, the world shifts, and with it, the understanding of your existence. You were never meant to blend in. You carry an inheritance that cannot be measured by earthly standards. Hidden beneath layers of self-doubt and survival, there exists a force within you waiting to be awakened. It is not a borrowed strength, but one uniquely crafted into the core of who you are. Life hasn't been a string of meaningless hardships. Each event, no matter how painful, carved out a space for greatness to emerge. The challenges you faced weren't obstacles. They were signals, pointing you toward the blueprint etched into your spirit. None of your gifts are coincidental. Every skill, every instinct, every spark of vision was entrusted to you on purpose. And once the realization takes root, it transforms everything. What once felt like chaos now begins to resemble a divine rhythm. The uncertainty fades, replaced by the quiet confidence of someone who has finally remembered what they were always meant to become. Some truths don't erupt. They unfold slowly, like dawn creeping across a shadowed sky. The moment arrives when the veil lifts and it becomes undeniable. The force you've been chasing has been alive inside you from the very beginning, woven into your being like hidden strands of fire. The essence of greatness pulses quietly, waiting for your awareness to ignite it. What once felt like missing pieces were actually dormant powers, waiting not for time, but for recognition. This is not simply about self-discovery. It's about reclaiming what was never lost, only overlooked. Every step forward is charged with a current far deeper than emotion. It is essence, the capacity to rise, to heal, to build, to reimagine, has always been there, embedded in your design. There is no external force required to activate it. You are no longer tethered to hesitation or approval. The keys have always been in your hands. When that awareness locks into place, the path ahead doesn't just open, it begins to respond. Transformation is no longer a future promise, but a present reality, waiting to be claimed in full. There are those who do not crush dreams with fists. They do it with silence, with subtle glances, with words laced in doubt. Under the guise of care, they distorted the shape of truth, hoping your light would stay dim enough to fit within their frame. They sensed your depth, and afraid of being eclipsed, tried to smother what they couldn't define. The grip they held wasn't with chains, but through quiet insistence that your intuition must be mistaken. They didn't want protection for you. They wanted predictability from you. But true essence can only stay hidden for so long. Eventually the fog lifts, and what once looked like safety reveals itself as restriction. Their version of support was never about love. It was about control. And as that illusion crumbles, clarity takes its place. The strength they siphoned wasn't theirs to borrow. It belonged to a source far beyond their reach. The giving heart, the attentive ear, the calm in chaos, all came from a well that was divine. Yet even fountains must be guarded when too many draw without replenishment. The awakening begins when you realize your generosity was sacred, and its misuse not your burden to carry. The performance of strength that tried to overshadow you was never real, just a brittle shield for their emptiness. True power, the kind that lasts, doesn't cling to others for sustenance. It builds itself from within and radiates without permission. There are those who become architects of distortion, constructing illusions not with bricks, but with words, silences, and strategically placed doubts. Their method is rarely loud. It's a quiet erosion of certainty, crafted to keep others orbiting their influence. But once inner clarity takes root, the mirage begins to dissolve. The frameworks of control, once so convincing, start to crack under the weight of your awakening. It becomes evident that their influence never stemmed from genuine strength, but from their dependency on siphoned energy, especially from those who had yet to recognize their own worth. When awareness floods in, their game unravels. The strings they once pulled no longer hold tension, and what's left behind is nothing more than a reflection of their own unhealed wounds. The narrative they tried to write for you, page by page, loses its grip the moment you reclaim authorship. No more borrowed roles, no more imposed definitions, only truth, uncovered and unfiltered. Identity, once blurred by the expectations of others, becomes unmistakably clear. It was never theirs to shape. It pulses with purpose, not performance. It is not a costume worn for acceptance, but a design rooted in origin. To rise into this knowing is to refuse dilution, to stop shrinking for the comfort of others. And when the veil is lifted, the voice within, firm, unwavering, takes the lead. You walk forward, no longer echoing borrowed stories, but living your own, radiant and unbound. This is your moment. Hit subscribe now and step into something greater. Don't miss out. The ascent of the spirit doesn't unfold in still waters. It stirs beneath shifting tides. The climb requires more than the desire to rise. It asks for courage to release the anchors disguised as safety. The weight of what once felt familiar, old patterns, lingering attachments, inherited fears, must be released for the elevation to begin. True spiritual rising isn't about escaping. It's about transforming the soil you stand on until it no longer pulls you downward. The higher path demands inner excavation, revealing layers buried beneath survival and repetition. Each challenge isn't a wall, it's a mirror, showing what still needs to be transmuted. The more the soul sheds what no longer resonates, the more the path becomes aligned with the echo of a deeper calling. This journey is not a detour, it is the way back to essence. Purpose begins to unfold, not as a destination, but as a rhythm, something lived, not chased. And in this rhythm, the self is redefined. shaped not by approval, but by alignment. Influence becomes effortless, not from trying to lead, but from simply being in truth. The impact is undeniable, not because of what is said, but because of what is embodied. And with each step forward, the evidence becomes clear. This unfolding was never random. It was a divine orchestration, patiently waiting for readiness to meet revelation. There comes a turning point when the grip once held over you falters, not because it was released, but because you outgrew it. Those who once fed on your uncertainty begin to panic as their influence slips like sand through trembling fingers. The scaffolding they built, constructed from your silence and sacrifice, collapses under its own weight. What once gave them leverage is gone. The access to your spirit, your patience, your unwavering presence. And as the illusion shatters, they are confronted with an echoing truth. Their dominance was never born from strength, only from your unawareness of your own. Watching their power unravel is not about vengeance. It is a stark reminder of how far you've risen. Their confusion is no longer your concern. What matters now is the clarity with which you walk forward, clear-eyed, unshaken, and no longer negotiating with shadows. The walls they tried to build around you have turned to dust, and what stands in their place is the full magnitude of a life no longer dictated by manipulation, but driven by alignment and inner authority. The capacity to feel deeply is often misunderstood, but its depth is a channel through which true influence flows. It's not softness, it's spiritual force wearing the garment of gentleness, the ability to connect, to uplift, to offer presence in a fractured world is not a flaw, it's a calling. Through that sacred sensitivity, lives are shifted and clarity is awakened. When others misunderstood your heart, they saw vulnerability where there was valor. But every moment of empathy was an act of quiet power, not weakness. Through that divine capacity, dormant potential in others was stirred awake. This wasn't an accident. It was part of your inner blueprint. And though the world once misread your nature, you now know it was preparation. There was a time when everything around you made you feel buried, pressured, dismissed, weighed down by the noise of limitation. But what looked like burial was really planting. From that space, something unshakable has emerged. Not just survival, but rebirth. The shift wasn't external. It happened inside. The past no longer holds chains, only lessons. What once tried to break you now serves as fuel. And what rose from the ground isn't just a new version of you, it's the truest one. Some souls carry a fire that can't be extinguished, only refined. After enduring what should have broken them, they emerge with a clarity that silences doubt. No longer defined by delay or detour, they begin to walk in rhythm, with the deeper call echoing from within. The road isn't straight, nor is it predictable, but it unfolds like a sacred map, one etched with intention long before the journey began. With each movement forward, their presence becomes a signal, a silent permission for others to rise into their own power. What seemed uncertain before now reveals itself as precision in disguise. The unfolding isn't just personal, it's sacred. This path, tailored and timed, belongs only to them. And as they surrender to its direction, purpose stops being a question and becomes a truth lived out loud. To live in alignment with divine intention is not simply to act, it's to remember. It's a return to the original agreement your soul made before it ever took form. The release of fear is not an escape from discomfort, but a stepping toward clarity. As one walks forward, revelations begin to arrive, not in grand pronouncements, but in quiet inner knowings that settle deeper than logic. Service flows naturally, not as obligation, but as overflow. Impact doesn't need to be manufactured. It happens because the alignment itself is powerful. The light carried begins to magnetize, not because it seeks attention, but because it refuses to dim. And in that illumination, others find their way too. The divine plan wasn't meant to stay hidden forever. It activates fully once the heart chooses trust over hesitation and moves without apology toward the purpose it was designed to fulfill. Those who mistook silence for absence or gentleness for weakness have now come face to face with the truth they were not ready to see. They underestimated what they couldn't understand, believing they could diminish what was never theirs to control. But when the tide shifted, so did the balance. Their assumptions crumble under the weight of revelation. Now, the very presence they once overlooked becomes the force they can't ignore. Their dismissal has become their regret, and the opportunity they mishandled has become the chapter they wish they could rewrite. Yet the story continues, not for their redemption, but for the fulfillment of a higher plan. Their remorse no longer has a seat at the table. It remains behind, a consequence of their choices, not a burden you are meant to carry. What rises now is not for them. It's for everything that was promised to your soul the moment it began its sacred journey. Some awakenings don't come with noise. They arrive like the slow breaking of dawn, quiet but undeniable. After all that has been stripped away, after every version of yourself you once clung to has fallen, what remains is unmistakable clarity. What once felt distant now feels alive in your bones. This moment, long in the making, marks the shift from surviving to embodying the truth of your being. Not borrowed strength, not learned confidence, something deeper. Every fracture, every silence, every lonely hour led to this unveiling. And now, with nothing left to prove, your light no longer asks for permission. It simply radiates. No longer confined by past roles or others' expectations, you rise not as a reaction, but as a revelation. You are no longer who you once were. What stands now is something forged, not found. To live with intention is to echo the cadence of the unseen. It is to move in a rhythm, not dictated by trends or timelines, but by something eternal and precise. The further you walk in alignment, the less resistance you feel. What once felt like uncertainty transforms into trust. This trust doesn't need constant reassurance. It is built through each decision that honors your deeper knowing. You don't stumble into destiny. You choose it, moment by moment, through your willingness to stay in tune with what calls you higher. As this path becomes clearer, the impact you make becomes less about force and more about presence. You influence not by effort, but by the energy you carry. In this unfolding, you become more than a participant. You become a conduit of the greater design already written into your being. There is a weight that returns to those who once disregarded what they couldn't comprehend. They misunderstood your stillness, misread your softness, mistook your evolution as weakness. But what they failed to grasp was that your strength was never loud. It was layered, silent, and slow burning. Now, as you rise into the fullness of your being, their disbelief turns to reckoning. The ones who underestimated you must now confront a reality they cannot reverse. But that reckoning is no longer yours to tend. Their regret may echo, but it does not shape your movement. What was once underestimated has become unstoppable. Their absence does not diminish your light. It only proves that what you carry was never dependent on them. Every soul is sculpted by sacred detail, Nothing left to chance. The path, though unpredictable, has always followed a deeper geometry. Nothing was wasted, not even the detours. Every challenge served as a compass, every delay as divine timing, every unanswered question as a doorway to deeper revelation. What once felt fragmented now begins to converge into a whole. And with this insight, the pressure to control fades. You are not building aimlessly. You are remembering a pattern that was already etched within you. This clarity doesn't make the path easy, but it does make it purposeful. You no longer race to arrive. You move with trust, knowing each step has been accounted for. What felt random reveals itself as orchestrated. The unfolding becomes peace, not because everything is perfect, but because everything finally makes sense. There is always something guiding from beyond the edges of logic, something you can't hold, but can feel. This presence doesn't speak in commands. It whispers in intuition, confirms in repetition, and moves quietly behind closed doors. At times, it may feel like you're walking blindfolded through chaos, but even then, you're being steered. That feeling of calm in the midst of confusion, that's not coincidence, that's alignment. Even the closures you mourned were often redirections wrapped in disappointment. When clarity finally arrives, you realize it was never about avoidance. It was about protection. Patterns begin to reveal themselves like constellations, and you see that nothing truly missed you. It was simply waiting for the right version of you to arrive. The weight of needing to understand everything lifts, replaced by the ease of trusting what you cannot yet explain. This is your moment. Hit subscribe now and step into something greater. Don't miss out. Belief isn't just a mindset, it's a portal. It turns impossibility into movement and silence into signs. It is the fire that remains, even when the winds of life try to blow you out. Faith doesn't always come in strength. Sometimes it walks beside fear, still choosing forward motion. It's what makes you pause long enough to listen and brave enough to act, even when the outcome is unseen. When belief anchors you, what once felt unreachable begins to unfold without resistance. There is a different kind of power born from trust, not the kind that demands results, but the kind that holds space for miracles. Each step you take becomes a declaration, not just of what you hope for, but of what you know is already being prepared. And when you look back, you'll realize every impossibility that once loomed large has become the very proof of what faith can build. The most profound shift happens when the soul begins to listen, not with the ears, but with the heart. True alignment isn't about following rules. It's about responding to the pull of something deeper, something sacred. When the heart no longer chases what fades and instead tunes into what's eternal, life begins to mirror that shift. The noise fades, clarity rises. This harmony isn't about abandoning desire, but about surrendering the version of control that leads to exhaustion. It's a return, not to religion, but to relationship, one rooted in trust, not fear. And in that space of surrender, the connection becomes unshakable. Direction flows not from striving, but from stillness. Each moment becomes a sacred meeting point between divine intention and human willingness. It's not instant. It's a rhythm, a daily turning inward, a steady choosing. And as that bond deepens, so does the unfolding. Life begins to feel less like effort, more like echo, your actions aligned with something far greater than you. Timelines are illusions wrapped in urgency. The soul, however, operates on cadence, not speed. There is an art to letting go of the clock and stepping into trust. In that space, you begin to see that delays aren't punishments, they're precision. The pieces of your path aren't falling behind, they're falling into place. While the mind demands arrival, the heart understands preparation. What feels like stillness is often sacred calibration, moments being arranged with surgical grace. There will be days when the wait feels endless, when the longing grows louder, but trust always that something is forming in the unseen. The invisible is more active than you realize, and when you choose surrender over control, peace enters like a tide, quiet but strong enough to carry you. This isn't about standing still. It's about walking with intention, even when the road ahead is unclear. Because eventually, what once made no sense will reveal itself as the exact path that shaped you into someone ready. Resilience doesn't always roar. It often sits quietly inside you, waiting. It's not forged through avoidance, but through contact. Contact with pain, with fear, with moments you thought would break you. It's the unspoken strength that steadies your hands when everything else shakes. And the beauty is, you never had to create it. It's already embedded in you. Planted like a silent force, it activates precisely when it's needed most. This is not a borrowed strength. It's ancestral, eternal, divine. Each time you rise from the moments that try to undo you, you tap deeper into that well. It doesn't promise the absence of hardship, but it guarantees you won't be undone by it. There is a power that runs through you not because you earned it, but because you were always meant to carry it. And the more you trust its presence, the more unstoppable you become. Beneath the layers of doubt and years of noise lies something brilliant, unseen by most, but undeniably real. It has always been there, flickering gently, waiting for permission to expand. This isn't something anyone can hand you. It must be discovered, reclaimed, nurtured from within. True potential isn't unlocked in grand moments. It's revealed slowly, through courage, through healing, through the quiet decision to believe in yourself again. And when you begin to see it, really see it, you start to realize how infinite it truly is. This light within you is not conditional. It isn't shaped by past failures or present fears. It was placed there for a reason. And now it is asking to be seen. As you peel back the false narratives and shed inherited fears, the brilliance becomes undeniable. You are not here to play small. You are here to become what you were always destined to be, a living testament of what happens when divine potential is finally set free. This is your moment. Hit subscribe now and step into something greater. Don't miss out. There is a reason your soul chose this path, and it extends far beyond personal gain. Purpose isn't always loud. It often whispers through acts of love, through moments of quiet service, through the lives touched by your presence. Impact is not measured by applause, but by transformation. Your calling is not rooted in ambition. It's anchored in contribution. When you choose to pour into others from a place of fullness, something extraordinary happens. You rise too. The path of purpose asks you to give, but not from depletion, from overflow. It invites you to see your life not as a pursuit of status, but as a vessel of impact. What you offer, your gifts, your presence, your compassion, has the power to shift realities. But to answer this call is to embrace both responsibility and freedom. It's not always comfortable, but it is always worth it. As you move in step with that sacred intention, you realize that your life was never meant to be ordinary. It was designed to be an answer. There are lives that were never meant to stay hidden. Lives designed to illuminate, to stir hearts, and to shift atmospheres. Some are born not to follow paths, but to create them. That kind of destiny doesn't announce itself with thunder. It waits quietly until the moment you finally decide to say yes to it. Within you lives a magnitude that was never meant to be caged by fear or watered down by self-doubt. This isn't about self-glorification. It's about activating what was seeded in you from the very beginning. Greatness isn't a far-off dream. It's a sleeping force beneath your skin, waiting to be awakened by your belief in it. The moment you give it permission, everything around you begins to shift. People feel your presence before you speak. Doors respond to the sound of your steps. This journey doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for boldness. Not reckless boldness, but sacred courage. The kind that keeps walking through uncertainty, trusting that your existence alone is enough to change the temperature of a room. You weren't created to play it safe. You carry a divine edge, and now is the time to sharpen it. When you live from that place, your life becomes proof. That fear can be outgrown, that destiny can be claimed, and that anyone can rise when they remember who they truly are.